Hi, everyone. I think there will be a few more people joining us as we go, but thanks for making it. This is the July event of our Scholars Library series. And for those of you who've not been before, each month this initiative allows a Rhodes Scholar to come and talk about their literary works to the community and also those beyond. Today, we've got quite a wide variety of people joining us. We've got scholars-elect, scholars in residence, alumni, a Schmidt Science Fellow, and also obviously lots of other people from outside the direct community, but it's really nice to have you all with us. So for this session, we're really excited to welcome Gladys to talk about her book, The PhD Journey. Her fellow scholar Ruth is here to moderate the conversation. She's currently based in Nairobi at the British Institute in Eastern Africa. And whilst at Oxford, she took a master's in refugee and forced migration studies. So I'll post the link to purchase Gladys's book in the chat, but for now I'll hand this over to Ruth, who can give you a further introduction to the session and to Gladys, and we can get into it. So please post any questions you might have in the chat as we go, and we can put them into the Q&A section that we'll have. So over to you, Ruth.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be joining this session once again. I was here a while back and we were discussing a different book by a Kenyan scholar. I think he was in Oxford, should be in the 80s, and it was a really interesting book. So I'm delighted to be here. Thanks, Georgie, for having me. And I'll go directly to introducing Gladys. I'll make this introduction quite special because I'm certain you've probably read her bio, found out that she was a Rhodes Scholar, currently, most recently, a Schmidt Science Fellow, and was based at MIT and did an engineering science at University of Oxford, and what she did before that. So coming to making this introduction special, as I said, so some months prior to August 2021, when catching up, doing one of our catch-up calls, Gladys mentions that she is writing her second book. She had written her first book, co-authored her first book, which is The Bold Dream, Transcending the Impossible, a book which I highly recommend all of us to have a look whenever able. And I remember her saying she's started writing it. And I remember even her mentioning to me the different chapters that she's thinking of. And I was like, wow, this is lovely. And I've always believed everything she says she's gonna do because she does it. And we then joked about mine. We've since titled the book that I'm going to write, N is equals to less than 10 years. That's the title. Also marking the duration by when she'd expect me to write. And later that August, I joined her and we had beasting sessions together. We call beasting sessions where we get to do deep work. Well, I was gelling into my new work role then. She was piecing together her book. And I must say, I'm honored to be moderating this session today, seeing this book come to life. She's written this book for many of us. Every time I read it, I get a new inkling and I get a new view of how to view like the PhD journey. And today we'll be having her guide us through that discussion. Welcome, Gladys. And at this point, I'm going to ask her to perhaps read us a synopsis of her book, and then I'll give a quick, to read us an excerpt of her book, and then I'm going to give a quick synopsis of the book and my reflections, and then we get to the discussion. Thank you so much. Welcome, Gladys.
Ruthie, I'm tearing from that introduction. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to moderating your book in less than 10 years. Hopefully we'll all be here. So I'm gonna read an excerpt like you mentioned. And then I chose this one because like we were chatting with Ruthie, and it's one of those things that I think we don't appreciate enough, or for those of us who are preparing to go into PhD or starting the journey, we think of PhD, and at least that's how I thought of PhD in 2014 when I had gotten an offer. And I thought it's this massive thing, this formal thing, this beast. Yeah, it's all those things, but also the lighter and interesting moments along the way through the journey. So I'm going to read this, and I think we'll discuss more. So this is on page 67. on the paperback, and I was writing about some tips for the journey. So once you are in the PhD journey, I wrote about some tips. This is the best tip for sure for me, and I still use it to date. And it's called, the first one is Inspiration is Perishable. And I was writing about that. And one thing to deal with inspiration being perishable is setting what people call, or psychologists call, commitment device. And I was writing about a commitment device that I set that helped me submit my thesis or complete drafting my thesis. So anyway, so let me read on page 67. Secondly, in February of 2019, I met a charming gentleman and quickly fell in love. He may be another reason those final moments leading up to my thesis draft submission are still vividly etched in my mind. My then boyfriend was working as a researcher at the university, and he would give me much appreciated company as I toiled away in the library, mostly Radcliffe Science Library, which had become my second home. Sitting next to him in the library gave me more energy and enthusiasm for what I was doing. The overpowering excitement of a young love magically dissolved most of my thesis writing stress. To further push me into meeting the daunting deadline, my boyfriend and I booked a weekend vacation in Europe in early May to celebrate my thesis submission at the end of April. That meant I had to submit my thesis before the vacation. Thanks to the power of setting tight deadlines and shooting for the moon, I submitted my first thesis draft on 1st May of 2019. However, I submitted the final thesis 3 months later than I had planned. That was in September instead of June. And my viva was scheduled for 6th of December. Needless to say, not everything went according to plan. So I was not able to meet my precise deadlines, but committing myself to a tight thesis submission deadline, announcing it to the people I deeply cared about and respected, my family, advisor, and my close friends, is the reason I was able to complete my PhD in December of 2019. Without this commitment device, I strongly believe my journey would have stretched out a bit longer.
That's virtual claps to you, Gladys. Thank you so much for taking us into the book and reading an excerpt, perhaps an excerpt that stood out for me. I know, like, when I remember reading the book, the first bits that I went to, I know definitely the before, during, and the before, then the starting part, then the during, and then after the PhD. All those parts are important, but I was really keen to see how do people thrive when they're doing the PhD. And you really spend a good while discussing like a whole chapter there, like, and you give us tips on how to thrive in the PhD, and you go in delving about having hobbies, having other things, having a support circle, and you're coming to that. Thank you so much for reading that to us. And for everyone who's just joined us, welcome. We haven't gone so far. We just made an introduction of who Gladys is. Glad to have her here. And also we've had her read us an excerpt from chapter 3. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh yeah, I was reading from chapter 4, and so chapter 4, like you mentioned, has a lot of tips from my experience for thriving throughout your PhD journey. And I was reading a paragraph out of 4.1, Inspiration is Perishable, and the importance of setting commitment device.
Thank you so much for that, Gladys. And
and importance of falling in love while in PhD.
You've all had that. Please find love if you're able to when you're doing your PhD. Yeah. Well, okay, so we can start this discussion, and I don't know whether to pick it up from there, but I'll come back to that, finding love and finding other things that will make the process be quite beneficial and quite impactful and move. So one thing that your book does, and you've mentioned it, and we were just discussing it before we started this session, is it demystifies the whole PhD idea and the process in itself. And majority of us, those who, I'm speaking for those who probably have not started the PhD itself, and even those who are doing the PhD, probably there was a point where like you had these mind blocks every time you thought about the proposal itself, the whole idea of choosing universities, the whole idea of starting the process of looking for a supervisor and looking for funding, and which makes me quite super keen to hear your thoughts. So before like you pursuing a PhD, and I think you capture it in your book at some point, mentioning how like you were scared, like no one in your family had done a PhD, or even like amongst your close circle. So ideally you were amongst the first, and really also keen to hear your after perceptions. So your before perceptions of this PhD journey and the after perceptions of the PhD journey.
That's very interesting, and actually that's how I like to split my story most of the time: the before and then during, right, and then after. So the most important, I think, and actually the entire reason why I thought of writing this book is the before. And before, I mean before I even applied for the Rhodes Scholarship, and as you know, for Rhodes Scholarship, you get the scholarship and then you apply for admission. So for me, before has two bits of the story. So it's application to the scholarship, and then after I got the scholarship, application for the PhD. So the thought process, I think, I mean, we can follow up. I don't want to narrate all the stories that I've already written. So I'll just kind of summarize what was going on in my mind. And I'm scanning my mind right now to look for a word that will summarize the before, and the word is scared. I was scared, and like literally, I lost. So first of all, when I applied for the Rhodes Scholarship, and I write it in the book in almost like a casual way, because I didn't expect that I was even gonna be shortlisted. And then when I got shortlisted, I didn't think I was gonna get the scholarship. And then and the reason why I say this is just because of my educational background, and just like Ruth mentioned, just where I grew up and the friends that I was with. I'd never seen someone going out of the country, like in my close friends circle, right? So it was something so out of this world, in my little world, when I was in undergrad. And then when I got the scholarship, and the scholarship is only taken at the University of Oxford, so obviously I didn't think I was even gonna get the admission. And then, as you know, the Rhodes Scholarship staff are very supportive, and through that support, I got to apply for the admission. And then when I got the admission, I was scared. I was coming from JKUAT, Jomo Kenyatta University in Kenya. I think it's ranked number 2000 and something. And I was going to Oxford University, ranked number 1, I think, in 2015. I was jumping from bachelor's and directly to a PhD. So I didn't do a master's. And I remember just so many sleepless nights, actually, before I took my flight to the UK. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of the decision that I'd made. And I thought I was gonna fail. And I think it's a feeling that many people, especially if you come from an institution that is not doing very well globally, I think that's that imposter syndrome. I think many people can relate. And I was literally wading through that imposter syndrome, and I was just trying to be confident. And I was like, you know what? Let me throw myself in the swimming pool, and then see if I will drown or if I will manage to float. So anyway, that was what was going on in my mind before. I was really scared. And then during, and I think we can talk more. So after I got admission, and I was now in the journey, that's while pursuing my PhD, I think I can also split, to summarize my entire journey, actually, I can split it into, say, early early years of my PhD and then later years of my PhD. Early years of my PhD, I wasn't sure what I was doing. And one thing that I regret when I look back is, and I write about it, following other people's schedule and how they work. So I would go so I didn't do a master's. So I'm coming from bachelor's degree from Kenya, and then I'm in the UK, I'm at Oxford. And then I wasn't sure how things are done. This is number one, the best university in the world. And I was like, oh my God, do people wake up past 6 a.m.? Like, this is Oxford, maybe people should be waking up at 4. And I think I was just, a lot of pressure. I was just putting a lot of pressure on myself. And I ended up following other people's ways of working or of researching. And it was so, yeah, it wasn't nice. It's the summary. That was the first years of my PhD. And then as those of you are in the journey, as you can relate, as you go through the journey, you get some confidence and you trust in yourself, and imposter syndrome and fear kind of wane, and you become more confident in your research, in yourself as a person, as a researcher. And then you tend to stick to your ways, at least towards the end. And so my later part of my PhD, I was really confident. And it actually got to a point, I was doing varsity level soccer, I was doing track events, and it got to a point I actually had audacity to ask for permission to attend my soccer matches and miss lab seminars, which, when I think about it, I couldn't do that in my first year. Anyway, just to show how confident I was in myself, I was like, I'm attending my soccer matches because I know what soccer does to me and my system. And then I'll come and deal with my research later over the weekend or in the evenings and whatnot. So anyway, towards the end of my PhD, I became more confident in myself, in my abilities, in my research. And the journey became more interesting and more manageable, and I was able to thrive. But in the beginning, I was surviving. That's not a lie. And I think we can all relate, like you trying to figure out who you are, how research is done, and whatnot. Yeah, so you told me to talk about before and after, and I'm happy to discuss more later.
Wow, thank you so much. Could listen to you just going on and on, because as I said before, reading your book and also listening to you always like get refreshing ideas and new ways of seeing things and learning from you. I want to pick from something that you mentioned about the extracurricular activities. So let's talk about the during. And so like, I think it's in the chapter 4, where you talk about some tips for thriving in the PhD journey. You talk about active involvement in extracurricular activities. So there's the soccer that you were part of, and the 400-meter hurdle track events that you actually took lots of training in to prepare yourself. And I remember reading a part where you said, as I made progress on the track, I felt a sense of progress and accomplishment, and that energy will be transferred to my work in the lab. This balance tremendously boosted my happiness level. Question that I might have for you, and not a question really, but something for you to reflect and keen to hear your reflections on, are, there's this tendency of when you're seeing things probably are quite intense and things probably are not going the way they are, maybe in the lab, like experiments are not coming out. For those who are social scientists like us, maybe a theory is not working out and you feel like I need to be spending more time reading or writing. And here you are suggesting that actually step out and do other things, like creating a balance. Do you want to say more to that, especially thinking about someone who's struggling, getting that balance or struggling to see sense in what you're saying? Yeah.
When I think about that topic of extracurricular activities, and I know, and it's a debate, I think, even in the book that I co-authored, we talked about importance of extracurricular, and from my own perspective, why it's important and why personally it's kind of why it's really helped me kind of balance my research and my life in general. kind of get that balance. So thinking about that topic, I think two things come in mind. The first one is, at least from my experience, and I think many people who are doing extracurricular activities and so many hobbies outside research, you can relate. It's a lot of time. It consumes a lot of time, yes, but two things. And you've mentioned one, and you've written. I mean, you've read what I wrote about. What I realized is that I think generally, as a human being, we want to be important. We want to feel useful, and sometimes when research is not working, you feel like you are stupid or you don't know what you're doing, and you can beat yourself. But if research is not working and something else is working, it doesn't matter. It could be outside research. From my experience, it kind of canceled. Yes, when I went to the lab and the experiment was not working, most of the time, experiment will not work. You have to try maybe 3 times or 4 times. But while I was failing in the lab, I was feeling like a failure. And I remember some days I would go home and I'd feel like a failure. I even don't know what to do. Like the whatever I thought would work, I'm on like second trial and the thing is not working. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And then the imposter syndrome thing kind of comes and you feel like, oh my God, I'm a failure. And then I would go home. I would go home and then I don't feel like doing anything else. And so I'm just relaxing and just thinking I'm a failure. And then I receive a phone call from our captain calling me, telling me to come join the team because Gladys, you're playing our right wing and we need you. We need to win. This is the most important match of the term. And then I would wake up and then I would go play and then we win. And it would cancel. Like I would come from soccer match feeling like, oh my God, like we won. And the reason why we won, I contributed. And then those feelings that I was feeling initially, feeling like a failure, they kind of just canceled. And I would feel I have a medal. I have a medal from soccer. My teammates feel like I'm important. I'm an important part of the team. And then they kind of canceled out. And when I'm sleeping that day, I know my experiments did not work, but I'm an amazing soccer player and I helped the team win, right? And those things, they kind of help you balance. Otherwise, I feel like if you go to the lab and things are not working, you are in a relationship and things are not working. And then I feel like you just feel like, oh, I'm a failure. And those feelings you can't avoid, but I feel like if you look for something else something that you can shine in, something that can help you feel important, it kind of balances out, at least from my experience. So I'll still beat myself and feel like a failure in the lab. And then in the evening, I'll play and feel good and win and feel like I'm important. So that's number one. And then number two, I think I wrote about it, the Parkinson Law, which is very interesting. And since I got to know about it, you guys can Google it and read more about it. It's called Parkinson Law. And it says, it's not word for word, but something like, task at hand will expand or contract to fit the time allocated. So if I have something, if I have an assignment to be handed in before midnight today, I'll work on it and I'll submit by midnight. If the same assignment is supposed to be submitted in the next 2 months, I'll submit in the next 2 months, right? So because we tend to relax when the timeline is big. So the reason why I'm bringing Parkinson Law is because personally I realized, because PhD is really long and sometimes it's so hard to concentrate on a project for those 4 years. So in a week when you don't have anything to hand in or a deadline to meet, when you have other things like your hobbies to fit in that week, it kind of helps you to manage time. And then you are able to manage time effectively, because instead of working on your project like the entire week and delivering on one item, you can fit in 3 other things from your hobbies or outside your hobbies, and you can still deliver within that 1 week. So anyway, I think doing extracurricular activities or embracing your hobbies and being serious about them, they help you manage time effectively because of the Parkinson Law. So I don't know if that answers your question, Ruthie.
Perfectly. Yeah, I definitely love the way you responded to that. And I think we also need to leave an element of surprise for anyone who's yet to read the book, because I feel like you perfectly capture it in there also. So I'm going to ask two final questions, and then we can open up the session for Q&A, because I'm certain many of us have questions that they might want to ask, which probably are not touched on. So maybe the first question would be, one of the questions from me would be, let's look at the challenges that come up, both foreseen and also unforeseen challenges. In your book, you talk about the loss of your brother and the impact that that had. Challenges could also be in the form of supervisors. You had a good experience with your supervisor, but I'm certain you've had people who've had different experiences with their supervisors, or having to shift supervisors in the process, and how that feels, and the impact that that can have on your work. Also, there's challenges for others which can come up in the form of funding, like not being able, majority probably who are joining today are under the Rhodes Scholarship. So that might be slightly different, but still funding can show up in different ways, challenges. And then you also touch on challenges in terms of the writing process. There's a section where you encourage about writing journal articles and just letting out your drafts out there, but definitely know that with letting out your drafts out there and writing articles comes rejections and failure. So the question would be, like, how do you go about navigating these challenges? I know probably you might not be able to respond to this 100%, but keen to hear your thoughts around that, and still maintaining like the momentum.
That's very interesting. It's a very good question, because I think PhD is full of challenges. I've never had anyone who went through the journey and they didn't have a challenge. Could be one. I mean, it differs. The number of challenges will be different for different people, but definitely you will find those challenges. So, and I think you've summarized some of the challenges that I think I would say when I look back were also my challenges. So let me talk about, say, challenges. Let me put these into two buckets, like you'd mentioned. We could say research-related challenges and non-research, which is like your life outside lab challenges. So let's begin with research-related challenges, like papers being rejected. I didn't write about the papers being rejected in this book, I don't think. I think I wrote about it in my first book. And I was writing about a situation where I wrote about this, and I think for those of you who are in the journey, you can totally relate about this. For 8 months of my life, I was preparing a research paper, and I thought this was in the beginning of my PhD, and I thought I was doing amazingly well because the abstract was accepted, and so I went on preparing this paper. It was good. I was going to present it in Sweden, I think, in 2017? I've forgotten, or 2016. 8 months of my life, I still remember, because I was eating, thinking about it, sleeping, thinking about it, playing, thinking about it. And then on the last day I submit, and then I was excited, at least for the first time. And our lab used to fund, I think they still do, they fully fund your trips to conferences if you are presenting a paper. And so I was really keen, at least, to travel out of the UK to present my paper and enjoy vacation in Europe, maybe. Anyway, so I submitted, and then maybe a few weeks later, I received that email that says, unfortunately, your paper did not meet our, whatever they say. Anyway, it crushed me. And for 2 weeks that followed, I doubted myself. I was like, yeah, you see, Gladys, you made a mistake. Who told you you could handle a PhD at Oxford? And so anyway, just to speak about papers being rejected, they will be rejected. And I think how to handle that is being prepared, knowing that it will happen. I think in life, be it in research or outside research, those things will happen. And I think if you submit everything and you get 100% positive results every time, I think there is a problem. I think we just expecting that out of 10 proposals that you've given out, one will be rejected. I think that helps. And for me, when I was writing that paper, I didn't think it was going to be rejected just because of the sheer amount of research that went into and just the way I wrote it. But anyway, it was rejected. Later, I revamped it and then submitted to another journal, and it was accepted. It was actually, it was one of my best. It's doing very well, actually. It has maybe over 30 citations at the moment, and it was rejected at first. So I think two things, at least from that lesson of mine, conference paper being rejected, don't take it personally. I think there is a chance it will feel personal, and it felt personal for me. I was like, wow, maybe these guys saw my name and they were like, you know, all those things that come in your mind. So don't take it personally. I think just be prepared that it will be rejected. And when it's rejected, sometimes it's not personal. And then number two is that whoever is rejecting, they are human beings, and they may not understand whatever you've written, right? Because when we submitted to another journal, we received very positive reviews, and it was actually archived in a journal. I presented later in a conference, and it was archived in a journal. So just to say, wake up fall down 7 times and wake up that 8th. Just try one more time, don't lose hope. And that speaks to having grit, patience and persistence, which I think PhD journey needs you to have. You need to have it, patience and persistence and grit, so that we are able to wake up the 8th time after falling 7 times. So that's dealing with research. And then if things are not working, I think personally, I was really lucky. I got a supportive advisor. And if things are not working in the lab, mostly because of an advisor, I think it's important to talk to the department, whoever is in charge of graduate programs or anyone. Don't sleep with your problems. I think you will get some help if you speak about it. So look for someone you can tell if things are not working in the lab, lab mates and advisor and things like that. So that's how you can deal with research-related challenges. And then you mentioned, let's go out of the research. So outside research, and like I mentioned in the book, while you are doing your research, life is happening. You are losing people, you are falling in love, you are falling out of love. Those two things actually happened for me. I fell out of love in 2017, and then I fell in love in 2019. So life is happening, in short. And needless to say, challenges will be there. I remember when I fell out of love in 2017, I didn't write about it because that was not, I think I'll write, we've talked with Ruthie about this, that we'll have to write a book about love escapade. So expect that in that book. But anyway, when I fell out of love in 2017, it actually affected my research. I had to ask for permission to be out for, I think, three weeks just to process heartbreak, right? And I think for those of you who've gone through that, you understand. So while the PhD is happening, life is also happening. And those challenges, the normal life challenges will accompany you. They will be with you. Number one thing, hands down for me, is support from friends. So, and Ruth, I think we've chatted about this before. And there's just something really powerful about having friends who are with you when you are crying, are with you when you are celebrating. And for me, when I lost my brother, when I was falling out of love, when I was falling in love, all those challenges, sharing with friends, celebrating with friends, crying and being vulnerable. When I lost my brother, I was living with some of my friends somewhere in Headington in Oxford. And so many days I couldn't cook, I couldn't wash, and they would cook and bring food to my room. They would do my laundry. They would just let me cry. And for me, hands down, I think support from friends. And that means for those who are about to go into the journey and those who are in the journey, I think you've already noted that support from friends is very important. So if you are preparing to start the journey, be intentional about getting 1, 2, 3, 4 friends who will be with you bad or good times. For me, that really helped in terms of dealing with challenges outside lab, and even like some lab challenges. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Gladys. And at this point, I'm just going to say a few things and then turn it to the audience to hear any questions. Feel free to also use the chat section to post any comment, any question that you might have. I'll read them out from there, but otherwise we'll be happy to have you just raise your hand and unmute and go ahead and ask. But perhaps some of the things we might not be able to capture today, and that's more reason for us to go read the book. I think Georgie has also posted where you can find the book. For those who are abroad, you definitely can find it on Amazon. I was checking and you can find it at Blackwell's right now. And other, like I need to confirm, maybe you can help me, Waterstones, I think, help me confirm the different stores in the UK, in the US, Barnes and Noble. I saw that in Kenya, definitely be in touch with either me or Gladys. Would be happy to help you get the book, and elsewhere really, if you're joining in from somewhere else. This book begins nicely by Gladys capturing like the different experiences of her, like individuals she reaches out to, who have decided, who went ahead and did the PhD, who have decided to take a break and perhaps go for the PhD later, and those who decided to not do the PhD. And I think that was quite important, capturing the different and diverse perspectives, as it's definitely a guiding point for someone who's considering whether PhD is meant for them or not. Also, something else that which stood out, and perhaps it will come out when some of the questions are being asked, is when she's talking about sticking to one's own unique working style. I remember her quoting a really nice quote by Maya Angelou, and we'll definitely have to read it out, that there's one pressure that you might get of wanting to work the way other people work, but she definitely encourages us to like find one which works for you and work with that, like have some sense of individualism and going for what works for you. Lest I speak so much, because I deeply cherish this book, I'm going to hand it over to us. Anyone who has a question and is happy to go first, I'll check out the chat to see whether we have any question. Ala says, thank you so much, Gladys, for sharing your experience. It was delightful to listen to you. Lovely. Thanks, Ala.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Perhaps I'd request Georgie if she could change the format of the screen so that we're able to see all of us. And also if you're joining and you're able to switch on your video, would highly appreciate, so that you can see each other. But yeah, I'm gonna hand this over to Ala, who has raised their hand.
I hope you can hear me well. Oh, perfect. So thank you so much, Gladys, for sharing your experience. I know for a lot of us thinking about a DPhil at Oxford, we have the same thought process and the same worries and concerns. And so I wanted to ask two questions. The first is, when I look at DPhils at Oxford, they're research intense. And sometimes I wonder, other DPhils have a good balance of thought and research experience. So sometimes I wonder, what if I have no clue about the topic? Are there like seminars on it? Can I easily reach out to experts? Because like if I'm correct, I don't think there's a taught academic schedule for a DPhil. And the second question is, what if I want to work on something that is not an active project in the department? So in that case, do I let go of my topic of expertise, or do I maybe approach someone else and say, I'm interested in researching about this? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you.
Ruthie, do I go?
Yeah, I think we can respond to the first two and then come to McDonald.
All right. Ala, thank you for the questions, amazing questions. The first one is, if you have no clue, I had no clue. In 2014, yeah, like when I think, sometimes I feel like knowing what I know now about DPhil, I feel like I would have hesitated to take the step. But somehow I think the ignorance kind of helped me. So anyway, just to say, I had no clue about So I think I talked about it, but I had an interest. I pursued mechanical engineering in my undergrad, and I had an interest in a field of mechanical engineering called thermofluids. And that is all I knew. And I wanted to do a postgrad in thermofluids. So when I got the scholarship, I therefore wanted to do a thermofluids related project. And that's all I knew. I didn't have a specific project in mind. I just knew the field that I was interested in. And so anyway, I ended up, when I got to Oxford and I met my advisor who agreed to supervise me, on day one of our meeting, he gave me running projects, 3 of them, and asked me to take about 2 weeks thinking about them, reading papers on whatever, and then decide which one I wanted to join. And then I took about 2 weeks and I decided I was going to jump on one of the projects. Just to say, having no clue should not prevent you from saying yes to DPhil. If you have scholarship and you have a chance and you have an advisor who's agreed to supervise you, having no clue is actually better, I think, in my opinion. You start from page 0, you start from blank canvas, you will read. So personally, some tips, and I think I write about them, some tips or like preparing yourself for the journey, especially first month, 3 months, first 6 months, first year, you should be thinking about sharpening your axe. Do not even try to cut the tree down. Just sharpen the axe and allow some of the things that you can do. You can join without, if you have no clue, just say yes and begin. And then do things like attending classes. So for instance, I was able to attend lots of, I think it's free to attend classes. So I made a note of foundational units that my PhD were kind of based off, and I attended a lot of classes. And then also my colleagues who were senior, they were doing projects that were related to me, or to my research. And I think opening up and telling them, and people are really willing, and they are willing to give their time to teach you, and saying, so I remember telling one of my colleagues, I had no idea how to use MATLAB even, and she gave me 2 hours of her time, and she gave me a crash course on MATLAB, and at least I was starting from not 0, like I was starting like maybe level 5, and then pick up from there. I do not know how to use LaTeX, and I wanted to use LaTeX. And another colleague gave me one of their weekends, and they gave me a crash course on LaTeX. And the following week, I was writing my thesis on LaTeX, and it saved my life. So just to say, if you have no clue, it's okay. Just jump in the swimming pool. You will be amazed at how we are resilient as human beings. You will learn so fast. Some days you will feel you are drowning, but before you know it, you are floating. But as long as you just make those steps to learn, attend classes, ask for help, read a lot, you will survive. PhD is like 3-4 years. The first 1 year, you just try and learn those things, and you'll be good to go. And then number 2 is if there is no active project, I think you can, depending on the department, your department you are interested in, you could chat with some of the professors there. Some professors are willing and open to new projects, and they can take you in, and they are willing to supervise you even though the project is new or it's not running. And sometimes if they can't supervise you, I mean, if they can't accept the project, just to say, I think if you have a project that you want to do, if you have an open-minded an advisor or a professor, they'll be willing to maybe get help or get another person to look after you. And it should be possible. I don't think you will miss out, but some labs for sure, depending on the equipment, if it's a science project, they might be limited to what they can accept. But if they have equipment and if they have capability and they're open-minded about it, I think they could say yes to it. So just chat with some professors in the department where you are interested in, and you could take the project, or you could switch. You could meet in between, or you could slightly change whatever the project you are interested in doing. And I hope those answer our last questions.
Thanks, Gladys. And definitely, Ella, let us know in case you have any follow-up question on the same. We're going to go to McDonald, and then after McDonald, we'll have Alan. Hi, are you there, McDonald Mutekwa? Let's see. Okay, let's have Alan, and then we'll come back to McDonald.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you, Gladys. Nice to see you after many years. I have a quick question. I'm one of those who, took a break after my master's, and now I'm starting my PhD in September.
Mm-hmm.
And I know with PhD, the research tends to include looking for funding sources, especially if you're doing sort of a social science sort of thing. Like myself, I'm doing a PhD in geography. So what would be the advice in terms of looking for funding and things like that?
Do you have an offer?
Yeah, everything is confirmed. I have a scholarship, some few grants, but nothing is enough. So yeah.
Okay. Congratulations. I think you've already fought half the battle, I think, in my opinion. I personally, so advice on funding mostly would be derived from my experiences, obviously. So I can share with you, I have quite a long list, and I listed them in the book, but I can share with you, write me a message on LinkedIn, and I can share with you a long list of some of the scholarships that I collected from Ruth and some of my closest friends, where they got their scholarships. And I also included where I got to know about Rhodes scholarship. And I'm sure you will get something that works for you, depending on the course and university.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And all the best.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else who has a question? Simbulele, please also when you're talking, help us pronounce your name. Hope I didn't butcher it. Apologies.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Simbulele. I think you pronounced it correctly. I'm joining from South Africa. We're about an hour ahead of you guys, so I am in my pajamas. I'm sorry if that's offensive. So I think Ala asked most of my questions, but what I wanted to ask is, like, what would you do differently? What do you wish you knew before you started your PhD? I'm actually researching about starting my PhD, what topics I want to look into. I haven't quite found what I really want. I think the problem is having something that you're passionate about and that you are really interested in, and then having to choose with what's available, what scholarships are available, and what's really relevant in that field. So I don't know what your comments would be on that as well. Thank you.
Very, very interesting question, Simbulele. So two things I think from your question. So what will I do differently? And then talking about, so I don't know, have you gotten the book, Simbulele?
I am planning to get the book for me and a friend of mine who's also here.
Yeah, please do, because so the reason is I'll start with the second question because I think it's really important. And I think Ala mentioned as well about you're passionate about a project, but they don't have it. Like in the university where you are headed to, or the scholarship you've gotten, they don't support whatever project you're doing. And while you mentioned that, I just remembered, because I included it, I don't know where it was. Ruthie, I don't know if you can think about, there was something that I wrote about that it's not a prison, like whatever project you end up doing, don't overthink about it. It's just part of the journey. It's a junction. It's not a life sentence, is what I'm trying to say. So I hope, and I'm not trying to downplay like that confusion, because I had a lot of confusion. So something that I don't know if I wrote about it, but I received 2 offers. Actually, maybe I had 3 interests, and then I received 2 offers, and it was a lot of stress, like deciding which one to take. One was my passion, and then the other one was yeah, one, I was passionate about the other one, and I don't know why the other, I don't know why I was interested in the other one. But anyway, just to say, I can relate to that junction where you are, where you, yeah, you're passionate about this, and then there is this other one that is funded and it's available, and it's a live project that is easy to take. So I think my thought is just think of it like, don't overthink about it. It's not a life center. It's not a life. You won't be fixed on that for forever. And just to give you an example. So personally, I did I did something in thermofluids, right? I did a different project. I was researching ways to cool aircraft engines during my PhD, and then for my post PhD project, I'm looking at satellite fuels, like totally different things. And I got a fellowship that was encouraging us to for anyone who was at the end of PhD and you want to try something different, they were giving us money to do exactly that. Like whatever you are interested in, because as researchers, we are always curious, and I think we are interested in so many fields, or you have so many interesting projects that you would want to do. So just to say, sometimes whatever funding that you've gotten and they are supporting whatever project, as long as you have some passion for it, it doesn't have to be 100% passion. It could be 70% passion. Just go with it. And then along the way, you might love it. If you don't love it, but you have to love it enough, because it's going to be a long project, right? And then at the end of it, if you might change your mind and you might want to inch away. And I think there are opportunities to do that. You could be when you start your PhD, and then there is an opportunity to change path and join whatever you wanted to do, or after PhD, you can inch away. I think that is a possibility. So I think to answer your second question, don't overthink about it. It's not a life sentence. If you don't, but you have to love it to some extent, and then just do it, and then you can inch away from it if you don't like it as you pursue it. And then to answer your first question about what would I do differently, a million things. I don't know where to begin. And maybe that's why I have the book, right? So I write about things that I regret, things that I don't regret. When you read, you will hear most of those, or you will see that theme running through. And some of my friends, 15 of them, at the last chapter, everyone writes about things that three things I asked them. And I can see Elvis here today. Thanks for coming. And everyone writes about things that they would do differently if they were to go back. So those are 15 times 3. You have like 45 things that those friends of mine would do differently. And I think you can learn a thing or two. What I'll do differently on top of my list would be to believe in myself. I wasted so much time swimming in imposter syndrome. It's only in third year when I realized everyone was scared. And I wish I had known earlier that we were all in this mess and everyone was trying to be confident, but some people knew how to hide it and they were really confident, or they appeared confident outside, but inside they were also doubting their research. They're also doubting themselves, but they didn't show. And that's on top of the list for sure. I feel like I missed on so many opportunities. For sure, during seminars, they would ask for someone to present their research. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've done enough to present in front of all these people. And then someone confident would just show up and present, and they learn something, they get feedback. So I lost a lot of opportunities to grow because I doubted myself. So on top of the list, for sure, I would believe more. I would have a lot of, believe in myself and my abilities, and stop doubting myself so much. I think it's on top of my list.
Thanks, Gladys, for that. Thanks, Simbulele, for asking. Hope I got the tone right. And Sandra Mutasta says, thank you so much for the inspiring talk, Gladys. It gives me hope, and well done in succeeding in this journey. I'm also researching into starting a PhD, and there's much confusion, especially with regards to a topic. Hope I'll get clarity, and I'll definitely get your book. Thanks again. And Mapiloko says, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Gladys. Very relatable. I tend to be so hard on myself, but hearing your story makes me have more confidence that I'll conquer this PhD. And you just touched on the bit on being hard on yourself a while ago, Gladys. Abdi Rizak asks, securing funding is important for PhD. As a Rhodes Scholar, how do you intend to help and mentor potential scholars secure Rhodes and other funding? Do you have any plans?
Oh, thank you for the question. Ibrahim, for sure, like the book is obviously one of my initiatives I even write about it on page, what page, Ruth? 29? On page 29, you will find a long list. I even put the links there. I even mentioned how I got to know about Rhodes Scholarship. And actually the entire reason why I chose to write this book was because when I thought of doing a postgrad, I wasn't sure where to get scholarships. And I write about a friend who told me of a scholarship link that I ended up following. And so it's someone who told me, and so I'm just using this platform to like tell other people as well that this is where I got to know about Rhodes Scholarship. And in addition to that scholarship link that I used personally, here are others. I think I listed around 6 of them. So I don't know if that answers Ibrahim question. Yeah, I'm trying to, when I get a platform like this, I try to share all those links because there's so many scholarships out there. And then, for whoever gets in touch with me in terms of thinking about how to apply and how to stand out and all that, I talk about that as well.
And I see we're just about to get to the end of the hour, but before that, let's have McDonald Mutekwa. They should be able to speak right now.
Yes.
Lovely.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Great stuff. So I'm sorry, my electricity actually went out just about the time I was supposed to ask a question. So
no worries. Welcome back.
Yeah. Thank you. I was interested in, when I left, you were talking about the first year, sharpening your axe before you actually get to cut the tree down, pertaining to the project. And I was interested in knowing, like some of what the rough timeline would look like, especially towards maybe publishing some things, and the milestones in that first year, like the important things to get done. I understand, if it's at Oxford, then you would still be a probationary student, and you would want to get out of that probation as soon as possible. So yeah, just the practicalities of generally that first year to get going. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. First year was definitely the hardest year for me because there were so many things that I wasn't sure. I was still trying to figure out how research is done and sharpening that axe. Another thing that I regret and I think I would do differently is instead of going directly to cutting down the tree, I would take more time to sharpen my axe. And it's very good that you asked that question. So I think on day one, as soon as you land, as soon as you meet with your advisor, some advisors will tell you, will volunteer information, some will not. And I think it's important. Advisor would be your friend, would be your person for this journey. And I think it's important to sit down with them on day one and ask, what are the important, just make sure you are on the same page regarding milestones. And like you mentioned at Oxford, there is the transfer of status, which you need to pass at the end of your first year. That's really important to, even outside, even after transfer of status, just being on the same page regarding, okay, after transfer of status, roughly when do you normally ask your students to apply for confirmation of status, after transfer of status and things like that. So just having a rough, because you are two different people, right? So, and I mentioned advisor because this is the person that will be with you throughout the journey, and they know, they are obviously way experienced, and they know the depth and the breadth of the research, and they know roughly they can tell how much you need to do to transfer and things like that. So I think it's important to sit down with the advisor on day one and then have a rough sketch written somewhere on a shared Google Drive or whatever collaborative tool, and just have a rough timelines, like on June, end of June, a rough draft of transfer of status should be ready. And then 2 years after that, another draft of whatever. And then I write about eating your elephant. So now, like, you have these things, you have this transfer status to pass at the end of year one, but that's a massive elephant. So you now have to, once you have a rough idea or take the rough deadline or roughly when your milestones are needed by your advisor or your department, then you sit down and you now break down the elephant. So month number 1, that is October. What are you supposed to be doing roughly? And I would say from October to December, do not rush. Do not people will come in, and my colleagues, I remember my colleagues came from, most of them from Ivy League institutions. And so they knew most of these things. They knew how to run, I was using an engineering software called ANSYS. They knew how to run ANSYS. I had no idea what ANSYS is, where to get it, actually. I did not know how to use MATLAB. I did not know how to use most of the softwares, to be honest. So I feel like I was starting from the negative side of scale. And there is a lot of temptation to try and run their race. You will get tired. You'll get tired really fast. And I think it's important to just try and trust in yourself and in your process. And then the first 3 months, October to December, you use a lot of that time learning those softwares that you will need throughout your PhD. Take that time to sharpen the axe. Do not worry about the race that people are already running, because they're already doing simulations and doing experiments. Yeah, just try and don't run that race. So I don't know if that answers your question, but regarding timelines, definitely would differ from university, differ from your course, differ from your advisor even. They might have different timelines, but it's important to sit down with them and have a rough sketch of the timelines for transfer, for confirmation of status, and just roughly how long they think your PhD will take. Maybe 4 years. It might take longer, it might take shorter, but I think it's important to have it written somewhere. And then after you've written those major milestones, now think about how to break that elephant into small pieces so that you don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Tekwa, for the question. Thanks, Gladys, for the response. I'm going to read the comments and then we'll perhaps wrap up. So I'll start with Alvin Nyaga, who actually I must mention is my close and dear friend and is currently at Jomo Kenyatta University in Kenya and is pursuing the architecture. And she says, as I write my research paper, really enjoying this session as I write my research paper for my architecture degree. This is encouraging me to rethink my pursuit for a master's, which I had shelved. Awesome job. Yes, Avi Holy says, thank you, Gladys, for sharing your experience. I'm going through imposter syndrome and your words encourage me to believe in myself. Please
believe in yourself.
And lastly,
yeah, most of the time, I think they normally say the whole world, very few people believe in you. So at least you should have one person in your corner, and that's you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
And then we have Ibrahim, who asked where copies can be found in Nairobi, and I shared a number, which if they definitely reach out to, they'll find the copy. Yeah, and to wrap this up, I hope I'm not locking anyone who has a question, but mine is
one thing, Ruthie, before you close it up. Kindly, when you get the book and you read it, I would really appreciate if you leave a review, mostly on Amazon or whatever platform that you are comfortable with. And obviously, if you are comfortable leaving a review. I think it will help other readers to have a feel of what the book is about and what other people think about it. And if you are in Kenya, I'm gonna write my phone number here. I can get you the book here in Nairobi or anywhere in Kenya. We can arrange on how you can get the book. And then I'll also leave my Instagram handle and my Twitter and my personal website. So feel free to reach out I'm happy to chat more if you want to chat more. Ruth, back to you.
Oh, thanks for that, Gladys. I think I've included your number. Maybe the others would be great, the other handles. Yeah, and I would like to turn this back to you. Any parting shot that you may have, and then we can hand this over back to Georgie.
Oh,
okay, I'll give you a second as you write out the handles.
Oh no, I can give the parting shot. It's just to say, believe in yourself. Number one, PhD journey is long, and I think another thing, actually something that I forgot to mention is that, well, yeah, I think you'll feel imposter syndrome, but I think it's important to think about, to know that the reason why you feel that imposter syndrome, it's mostly because it's a learning process. And I don't know if you guys know about the Abraham Maslow 4 stages of learning. If you've not gotten the book, you can go to Google right now, just search Abraham Maslow 4 stages of learning, and you will understand why you feel imposter syndrome. And I think once you know it's not you, that really helps. Knowing that other people feel it, and therefore it's not only you, that helps. And knowing that it's the process. And I like it because the second stage of learning is where you realize there is a lot in the field to be learned, and you just know a percentage, and you feel so insufficient. And that's where the imposter syndrome come in. So anyway, that's not, so believe in yourself and don't let the imposter syndrome snatch your opportunities. Apply for those grants, apply for, write that paper. If it's rejected, well and good, you will learn something. Just put yourself out there, and you never know that comes back. And then number 2 is try and enjoy it, try and fall in love, try and have life, whatever you've always wanted to do in life. I think, and I write about it, that personally, I believe now, having watched my brother die when he was really young, and he didn't live to see most of the dreams that he used to tell us about them. So I know that life is really short. And while even you're doing your PhD, you're not sure if you will graduate. Hopefully you do, right? You're not sure if you will be in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s. So whatever you've always dreamt, or whatever your dreams are, when you get a chance and when PhD allows, squeeze the time and try scratching the surface. And I wish you guys all the best in your PhD journeys. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And Gladys, Ruth, that was amazing. I think, Mary, would you like to say something?
I would love to say something, just very briefly. Gladys, thank you so much. And for those on the call who don't know me, I work at Rhodes House and accompanied Gladys all the way through her journey on the DPhil and beyond. And it's lovely to see you back talking about your book, which I have read cover to cover, couldn't put it down. So I highly recommend it. And to Rhodes scholars on the call, either those in residence or those coming in October, Gladys has offered to stay on the call for a few minutes longer. So if you'd like to stay, please do, no obligation, entirely up to you. But thank you, Gladys, thank you, Ruthie. Good to see everyone, thank you for coming.